So timeline-wise, you guys would have been bar mitzvahed in 1957, so born in 43.
44.
44, okay. And this synagogue existed, not the synagogue, but this site was Beth Hebrew Orthodox Synagogue, Beth Hebrew, in 1950. So there was a house here prior, and they ran a synagogue out of here from 50 to 54. Then they demolished it. So I'm trying to figure out how Krohn or Elias Lowy or Hutt or Polesetsky, so any of these guys, I should give you the names to see how they found Max, because your father's studio, which you were so generous to allow me in to see, is a pitched roof, just like this synagogue, with 2 skylights, with fire-rated glass, the crisscross fire-rated glass, and this one is a pitched roof, almost the same angle, and had a clear story lighting. And from day one, they said it leaked like a sieve. And when I asked you, you said
like a what?
Leaked like a sieve. It leaked really badly. I mean, your dad was building buildings before the technology. They didn't have silicone. They didn't have glazing the way that they have now. They didn't have the rubber gaskets. Your dad's building modernist architecture using building materials that didn't exist yet.
Right.
But do you have any recollection of any of the people, any of the Jewish community, other than Rabbi Krohn, that your dad mentioned?
No, Rob and I remember him.
Now, did you guys go to Temple Beth Israel?
Yes.
And that was on 15th Avenue.
We started in 1950 there.
Well, you have an easier question than that. So you started what year?
1950.
Yeah. So you're going to Beth Israel, Rabbi Krohn.
Yeah.
So that's an easier answer. Thanks, Roland.
I really love his brother's
That's probably
names.
where the contact.
Yeah, there's the contact.
Alexander. What was his brother's name? They're really remarkable names.
Oh, so he had his brothers were Daniel Webster and Theodore Roosevelt.
Right.
And Abraham Lincoln Krohn. So Abraham Lincoln Krohn's story is he was
that was him. That's our guy.
That's your guy. Yeah. So he was from New Jersey, Fairlawn, Pennsylvania, somewhere in New Jersey, and he was a social worker, and he was working at the B'nai B'rith orphanage, and Rabbi Weiss, the head of Jewish studies and
he died early, Dr. Krohn. I think he died like in the late mid-50s.
58. Yeah, 58.
Yeah. Because then a fellow by name, I think it was Rabbi Silverman, took over.
Right.
Does that sound right?
Possibly, but same thing. My specific slice has been mostly Beth Hebrew, and when people get into Talmud or the other synagogues, the only way that I'm going to know about them if it related back.
Rabbi Plotkin's gone, right?
I think
He just passed.
He just
recently talked to him.
I was able to speak to him.
When did he die?
2010.
How old was he? 85?
In his 80s, yeah.
I wonder when he was born. Probably in late 20s, mid 20s.
Well, it's.
He came after Rabbi Silverman. He came like in 1961 or 2.
Yeah, but Krohn is the one who found him.
He was the one I remember most of going to something.
Okay, yeah. So Krohn. So those rabbis are interesting. Krohn's story is really quite different because he's like your dad was thinking about interconnections between different civilizations, different religions, and he had a lot of outreach. So outreach. So he was really, he wasn't just preaching or giving sermons at whatever synagogue he was part of. The newspapers and the archives show that he was at the Unitarian Church and the Baptist Church and the Lutheran Church, and he was the chaplain for the U.S. Army here in Arizona. He was the chaplain for the U.S. For the House of Representatives at the Capitol. He was part of the CCC, which is the Civilian Conservation Corps. He was out, a man in the arena, right? So he's out there, and I can only imagine him meeting Max.
Yeah. They hit it off really well. I remember that.
They're both Renaissance men. They weren't just focused on.
And there's paintings.
In fact, I was sure
Yeah.
Dr. Rabbi Krohn was the biggest, was the most influential in having Dad do this building, no doubt.
But so and then I'm almost trying to figure out which came first, because it's possible that your dad had influence on them even buying this synagogue, buying the building in 1950. It could have been a 4 or 5 year plan from the get-go, because this is where it gets into the connection to Egyptology. So
okay.
this address is 333 East Portland, and it's the APN number, and since you're a real estate guy, it's Block 3, Lot 9, page 53, APN number is like 118. It's all 3s, 9s, and 18s.
Right.
And if you go back to people's sense of time or timelessness, it's not, the calendars were lunar calendars, and the original lunar calendars are the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians and the Babylonians. And without the rotation and wobble of the earth and all those things,
Right.
I think it's something like a straight lunar calendar without the variations is 29 days, 12 hours, or maybe 10 hours, 44 minutes, and 1 chelek. And that's where I put in the video, a chelek is 3.33 seconds. So,
What is that word?
chelek,
Spell
I don't know. how to
Chelek or Helek.
Okay.
And I keep on telling this story like I'm Rain Man, like I'm just telling the story to people.
That's funny. Yeah.
And every time I tell the story, I get a different response from people. And so I told some Israeli friends, and chelek means part in Hebrew. So it's
Part?
basically part, P-A-R-T.
Part.
It's a part. So it makes sense. So here's a component, here's a part.
Yeah.
This is
like
what it
a
is.
second
Instead of a
down.
second, you wouldn't have a sense of time or a second.
Right.
It's a little cooler in here. You want to
It's
come in?
cooler in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, come on in.
Kind
Sorry.
of like a
You don't have
millisecond.
you have anything on here to make it cooler?
Yeah, it's
It's cool
we should,
inside.
yeah, well, it'll be cool here.
Oh.
Wow.
Scott, this is Max Kaufman's son, Richard Kaufman. So Scott's our master mason, who's been I suckered into working on this project. And we used to come to the building when before I owned it, we'd come to the building. I'm like, how hard is it going to be to fix this? And what's that? Where do you think that crack is? And like we were, I broke into the building before to get measurements.
Illegal.
Oh yeah, exactly. So back to the Egyptology and the chelek is I can only imagine your dad, because architects could have any clients, right? So
Sure.
So here's a client who knows that the Jews are the children of the Egyptians, and that the Jews appropriated most of their knowledge from the Egyptians. They're going to take their sense of time, their calendar, their farming techniques, even Proverbs is supposedly plagiarized. It's like 90% word for word from Amenemopet's book of sayings. I would have to talk to an Egyptologist, a Jewish Egyptologist like your dad, to see what the connection is.
He was an Egyptologist. He had a degree in Egypt.
Right. But think about that. Every time you're sitting down at Passover, it's all about Exodus. The Jews become the Jews at Exodus. I mean, it's real straight.
Split from the Egyptians.
Right. So I told some other Israeli friends that I'm giving the whole story, and people are half listening, half not listening, and they're like, and I hear them speaking in Hebrew, and they're like, oh yeah, in the Talmud, all the text is blocked together, block paragraph. All of a sudden, visually, during Exodus, the lines start to separate. So even visually, the text separates to enforce this whole separation and this split. And so now I'm even more curious about the rest of your family, like your grandparents, to find out how Max, sitting at Passover, listening to these stories, must have analyzed or gone through this. But let's go back. We'll go back to the 333. It's 1/18 of a minute, and which is
3 seconds.
with 3.33 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you ask around, and I've had a hard time finding it, chai, life, is good luck, and I can't find any reasonable answer why chai is good luck. And those rabbis put in the letters, and they add the letters, and it's like a 10th letter and an 8th letter, it gets to 18. The one that makes more sense, mathematically, scientifically, engineering-wise, holistically, is I think your dad's interpretation of it, which is 3.33 is 1/18, and therefore the key to this building has been that your dad embodied, and he also embedded all of this math. So you have 6 bays with 3 windows per bay.
Right.
So you have 18 windows. The sanctuary area, which you could see is down an inch
Step, yeah.
is 30.
It looks different than it does on the video. The video has all those lights and everything.
Well, that's the computer model. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Oh, that's what it's
I haven't finished it yet.
Oh, so that's what you, oh,
I sent you the deconstruction. I sent you saving it, and then people are like, "Well,
that's
what's
what
it going to
it's
look like?" Yeah, so we still have to. Yeah.
that'll take forever.
No. Well.
Oh, no.
Thanks, Richard.
He's the guy that will know how long. It won't take that long.
Maybe a couple of years.
Well, it's a function of money, so it's kind of like the same thing. I have the capacity to finish it. If I finish it the way that I want to finish it, then I'm leveraging more of my life savings. So it's like same thing. Like like I said, I empathize with Max taking off 4 or 5 years of your life on something that's passionate that you believe in. But I put in all the base things that needed to happen. Like instead of finishing it, making it pretty, I put in a underground sprinkler system and then overhead sprinklers. So now, if anything ever happens, yeah. So I'm putting the money in the infrastructure part. That's long term because the easy stuff, putting in the
If like they like that fire over there, they want to
exactly right.
If they want to try to arson this building,
Exactly.
it'll be protected.
Right. Yeah. Or it could just be a mistake. It could be an electrical fire. But this building had no electric. All the electric was stripped. It had no water. It had no air conditioning. All the windows were boarded up, like you saw in the video where we deconstructed it. But then I put the brakes on.
All these windows are new.
No, that's all the original windows.
Those are the original windows.
Those are original
That
windows.
was missing.
Yeah, there's 3 missing over there. There's a couple cracks. This side, the west side, is only missing 1 window. And in fact, and this could be conjecture, but the windows themselves, I should have a sample down here, are circles that are on a 60-degree grid, and the negative spaces form stars of David.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I saw that on the computer.
Yeah. So considering who your dad was and what he was about, I don't think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
And same thing, going back to the Egyptology, with the building was green on the outside, like an Egyptian temple, which is kind of like the hieroglyphs in his studio.
Right.
And then you have these bright orange windows. So you got the fire, and then you have blue for the water, and then you have the green for life, and then you would have all the wood for dirt.
Yeah.
And
Look at that orange and yellow right there. Where's the green?
well, the building itself is green. Here, come on, yeah, I'll show you. So
There's a blue window right there.
yeah, the building itself is green, and then all this was a pistachio green. So that's the original color. So it's like this weird, it's an interesting combination of an Egyptian palette, but also a 1955 palette. Because if you looked at this building and you didn't know who the architect was, with the black and white tiles, and it was 3x3 grids out of 9x9 tiles, and black and white, and the Torah is black and white. But in 1950s diners, those were materials you could get off the shelf. So I said, without the blueprints, like the closest blueprint that I can see or feel is your dad's studio. Yeah. And your dad's this is also conjecture. I would think your dad built that studio as a mini observatory, but also built it before this building was built because he's probably showing the congregation and the people what he can do. Because
You know when he built that?
Yes. The den where I worked on
Yeah.
53.
53, okay.
so this is 55. So
You know I knew that, right?
and they have no budget. I mean, so
Our outer room, the boys' room in the back,
Right.
58. He did all that himself. We helped him.
Yeah.
He built that the studio you call it the studio. I call it the den now.
okay.
He did that. We helped him. We just hauled 2x4s for him. He did that in like 6 weeks, all by himself, on spare time on the weekends.
And
he
he
built the whole thing himself. Everything, even the roof, the walls, everything.
And then 9x9, it has 9x9 asbestos tiles
Yeah.
in red. I mean, he could have been. My guess is, I bet you he probably wanted this floor red like that. But as a synagogue, that would have been really tough. But the light fixtures that you have, his original light fixtures, they talk about these light fixtures that were supposed to be in the synagogue in the article in the 1954 before it was built. Again, my guess is that those light fixtures probably never got into this building, but the ones that go red, orange, blue, green, red, orange, blue, green. I mean, he's got the primary colors. He has a palette that is this fascinating combination of Egyptian and modernist thinking. Even this Bima, and I learned this from a born-again Christian guy. He brought it to my attention. He came in. He was with Maricopa County, wanting to know why we were working, doing remediation without a permit. And then I explained to him what it was, and he was religious. And then he looked at it. He goes, "Is that cedar?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well,
This is where
it's like cedar of Lebanon." I was like, "Well, it's probably based off of cedar of Lebanon." Then he told me that King Solomon's temple, which is, Trump is there right now, right? King Solomon's temple was supposedly built with cedar of Lebanon, gilded in gold. So here I'm like, okay, now you have a guy like Max Kaufman. They're going to build it with whatever cedar they can get, and I've never seen a synagogue that's actually lined in cedar. So he's going back to the original writings, and then this is also conjecture. That's an original purple window. And you see that color that's up there? It kind of has like a gold color.
Yeah.
So these are orange over here. So I'm thinking, all right, Max knows how light works. He knows how the sun travels.
What color is that? Magenta?
Yeah, it's like magenta purple, and then these are orange, and then the color that comes off of it is gold. And when the light hits, now it's going to be tough when the sun sets because the big building's over here.
Right.
But in the morning, it's an Orthodox synagogue, so it's supposed to function. You can see there's no lights on in here. So you could read the books, you could read the prayer books, you could read the Torah, but you also would then have this gold cast coming down,
Right.
which goes back to King Solomon.
I'll be done.
So these are all the little
These
are all the little clues that I think, and which is
Yeah. See, that's the
Which is
thing
why I'm
with
amazed
Max.
by your-
He was a very humble man, and so he never talked about his accomplishments. He just said, "Well, I'm just no different than anybody else." Basically, was his attitude. So he would never toot his own horn, so to speak. And you'd have to get him to talk about things to where he could find out stuff like that, because he didn't share he didn't share that kind of stuff with these guys when they were growing up, because they were doing baseball and all that kind of stuff. And Max, when he got away from the office, his focus was the kids, apparently.
Yeah, he was coach of our baseball team.
Are there brothers or sisters? Do you have uncles, aunts, or family back in Chicago that would?
They're all in L.A. Everybody
They're all-
moved to L.A. in the early 50s, late 40s. And everybody moved from Chicago to L.A.
Did anyone end up in art and design or architecture or
Not a soul.
science?
Even his brothers, Leo was in the business, and Sid, he was business. Leo was his older brother. They're both
Who's the one in
real-
Albuquerque?
That's my
That's your
brother,
mom's.
my mom's brother.
Your mom's brother. There.
But none of them were engineers or architects. Nobody. Nothing. Yeah, he's it. Leo sold those great big, what do you call those traveling, mobile homes?
Oh, trailers? Those mobile
Yeah,
trailers?
mobile trailers. That's what Leo did.
Travel
I don't remember what
trailers.
Sid did. Sid was in some kind of business. But they're both big war heroes. Tremendous war heroes.
Really?
Oh yeah, Uncle Sid, he killed, on that gun I had, that 45 Smith & Wesson, he has eight notches, or 8 Japs in New Guinea. They were bigger, they were different, they were taller Japanese during World War II. 1942, New Guinea. He was born in 1920, he's 2 years younger than Dad. Actually in the middle of 20, Dad was born October 4th, 1918. And not only that, he also killed several more of those Japanese when he was so close. When he could no longer use his revolver, he would never talk about it. Finally, my dad would have to relate the story to me, because neither one of them would talk about it. They would come in and you have bayonet, and then you put bayonets on the rifles, and they'd come charging at you. He was the tallest of the brothers, the biggest, the strongest of all the brothers, and they would come charging at him. And Uncle Sid would actually just like bale of hay. He would just spear him and just toss him over. Two innumerable amount of people that you won't talk about. That's many more. Besides the 8 hand-to-hand combat killed, there were multiple more Japs killed with the bayonet flinging. You run and you just let the momentum.
But he spoke. So your uncle spoke to your dad about that, though.
Yeah, Yeah, he got all kinds of medals in World War II. His brother, Leo, fought the Germans. He was born in March 16th, I think it was March 21st, 1916. So he's 2.5 years older than Dad. And he fought the Germans, and he was a tank sergeant. And he had a real bad temper, and they would use the anti-Semitic terms, and he'd knock you out. And he got demoted to a private, whatever. Finally got back up to
Free
corporal.
spirit.
He was really tough. He was very, very, you don't mess with Uncle Leo. And one day he was out patrolling with his tank by himself, and all of a sudden he sees some movement in the brush, in the forest, and he says, "Raus, rise," whatever that means in German. And 46 of them came out, and one of them tried to do something, and he realized his tank did not work. It was defective. Machine guns on the tank did not work. So he let him back into camp anyhow. And there's a photo.
So he captured him.
Of the capture, there's a photo of the capture that they have. His wife has the photo. And General Howling Mad Smith is pinning the medal on Uncle Leo for doing that. That's a major medal.